Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's lecture and discussion on major counseling theories. In this session, we'll journey through 20 of the major approaches to counseling, from classic psychodynamic theories to contemporary evidence-based practices and culturally responsive framework rooted in African, multicultural, and liberation psychology. And the goal for our lecture discussion today are four major points. First, to help you understand the core principles and assumptions of each theory. Two, identify key techniques and interventions used in each practice. And evaluate the strengths and limitations of each approach. And then discuss cultural considerations and adaptation for a diverse client population. Now, disclaimer, I'm not going to get too in-depth with any of the theories because that'll make this video far, far too long. But hopefully this will give you a basic synopsis and understanding of each theory. So let's first start with psychoanalytics. It's most associated with Dr. Sigmund Freud. And the core idea of psychoanalytic is personality and behavior are shaped by unconscious drive and early childhood experiences. Some of the key concepts of psychoanalytic theory are id, ego, superego, the structural model of personality. Okay. Um, the defense mechanisms, ways we protect ourselves from anxiety, repression, projection, those type of things. Okay. And it's the ways we protect ourselves from anxiety. And the psychosexual stages, developmental stages with potential fixation. Some of the techniques used in psychoanalytic are free association, to where you will say a word, the person says the first thing to come to mind, dream analysis, interpretation of transference and resistance. The strengths, insight into deep-rooted issues, highlights the importance of childhood experiences. Some of the limitations, they're very long-term, it's expensive, and it has a less focus on cultural systemic influences. Adlerian theory, associated with Dr. Alfred Adler, the core idea is humans are motivated by needs for belonging and significance. Key concepts of social interest, and that's a sense of connectedness and contributing to society. You have the inferiority and striving for superiority. That's about personal growth through overcome perceived limitations. Okay. Lifestyle and birth order. That's the patterns of behavior shaped in early family life. Techniques include lifestyle assessment, family constellation exploration, encouragement, role playing. The strengths of Adlerian theory is the holistic, socially conscious, adaptable to multicultural settings. Some of the limitations is less structured, research-based compared to cognitive behavioral therapy. Jungian analytic psychology is associated with Dr. Carl Jung, and its core ideas of psychological health come from integrating conscious and unconscious part of the self. The key concepts are collective unconscious, shared human memory bank, archetypes, that's the universal symbols like the hero, the shadow, the mother, individualization, process of becoming whole. And the techniques include dream analysis, active imagination, symbol interpretations. The strengths include it integrates spirituality, it's creative, and it's mythological. Some of the limitations include that it may overgeneralize archetypes and it can be very abstract. Behavioral theory, its core belief is behavior is learned and can be changed through conditioning. Key concepts are classical conditioning learned via the association, which is Pavlov. Um, Operative conditioning, learning via consequences, Skinner, and modeling, learning by observing others. Okay. Some of the techniques include systemic desensitization, token economics, and exposure therapy. Systemic desensitization is when it's like, say, for example, if they have like a fear or something, you desensitize them to that. Token economics when you give them like a reward for doing something that you want them to do. So, and then at the end they collect out their tokens, they can get favor or benefits. And exposure therapy is when you just expose them, like a rush to something that they're going through. Like, say, for example, they have a fear of spiders, you expose them to a spider by putting it on them and making them realize they're not going to die. Um, the difference between that and desensitization is you take them in steps. So, like, say a person had a fear of flying, you'll drive them to the airport, and after they get over that anxiety, you bring them back home. Then you drive them to the gate, right, where they go to check in. Then you take them back home. Then so you just steps, but with exposure, it's just everything it was. The strengths are clear, measurable outcomes. Excuse me. Limitations is less focus on underlying emotions or thoughts. Okay, you're just focusing exclusively on the behavior. So the difference moved on to cognitive behavior. And cognitive behavior is thoughts influence feelings, which influence behavior. The key concepts is to this is cognitive distortion. So it would be a patterns of faulty thinking, like all or nothing thinking, right? Those got to be changed. So if you're going to change those, then it'll change their feelings, which in turn will change their behavior. Automatic thoughts, immediate interpretations of events. You ever had a person where it's like they automatically interpret what's happening and it's usually negative, and so it's like what you would do is you would change that person automatic thought process of interpreting an event negative, and then that'll change their feelings of it, and which eventually change their behavior. Techniques include thought records, behavioral experiments, and cognitive restructuring, where you kind of restructure the way a person is thinking and looking at the situation. The strengths include strong research support, effective across many disorders. Limitations include can be overly structured, requires cognitive engagement from clients, and it can be kind of different effects for different cultures. Dialectic behavior therapy is balancing acceptance with change. That's its core belief. And key concepts and key components are mindfulness, de-stress tolerance, emotional regulation, interpersonal effectiveness. And some of the techniques include skill training groups, phone coaching, diary cards. The strengths include evidence-based for borderline personality disorder, post-traumatic stress disorder, and for individuals doing self-harm. The main limitation is there's time and intensity. It's time intensity for both clients and therapists. REBT is core ideas. Emotional distress is caused by irrational beliefs, not events themselves. Key concepts of the ABC model, the activate an event, the belief, and the consequence. Disrupting irrational beliefs is one of the techniques. So you'll do a focus into getting into the difference between the activating of the event and the belief. So a certain consequence won't happen. Reframing the activating event, reframing the belief, just give them a different perspective on what might be happening. Homework assignments are real big in REBT as well. The strengths is direct, it's efficient, and it's adaptable. Limitations include style may feel confrontational for some clients. Reality therapy, that's associated with William Glasser. The core idea is we choose our behaviors to meet our basic needs. And the key concept is the quality world, total behavior, and choice theory. Techniques include a WDEP model, and that means wants, doing, evaluation, and plan. So what does the person want? What are they doing about it? How is that working out for them? And then what is the plan to get it to work better? Okay. The strengths is practical and it's future focused. And one of the limitations is it may underemphasize past trauma. Okay. And then there's the foundation of our uh, field of counseling is the person-centered therapy, where it's worked by Dr. Carl Rogers. And the core idea is people have an innate tendency toward growth and self-actualization. The core conditions are empathy, congruency, and unconditional positive regard. Techniques is non-directive listening, reflection of feelings, and genuineness. The strengths include building a strong therapeutic alliance, and it's culturally adaptable. Limitations is less structured. Some clients may need more direction. Okay. Then there's motivational interviewing. Motivational interviewing core ideas to help clients resolve ambivalence and help their own motivation for change. Some of the key principles are partnership, acceptance, compassion, and evocation. Techniques are what they call the OARS method, and that's open questions, affirmations, reflections, and summary. OARS, open questions, affirmation, reflections, and summary is the foundation technique in motivational interviewing. And the strengths is effective in addiction, and health behavioral change. Limitations best for motivated clients or those ready for actual change. Gestalt for most associated with Dr. Franz Perls. The core idea focus on awareness in the present moment, the here and now. The key concept is holism, unfinished business, here and now. Techniques is the empty chair, role play, and exaggeration. And with exaggeration, what you do is you'll over exaggerate the situation that the client is coming in. So you'll put a lot of grandiose on it to make it so where the problem won't seem nearly as bad. The strengths, experiential, integrates body awareness. One of the limitations is it might feel real intense for some clients. Existential, the core ideas addresses life ultimate concerns, death, freedom, isolation, and meaning. The techniques is exploration of value, meaning making, and authentic living. Strengths is the deep and philosophical approach that existential brings. And the limitations is less structured and it requires high verbal insight from clients. when you look at a multicultural counseling approach, it integrates cultural identity, systemic issues, and worldview into in therapy. Techniques include cultural genogram, worldview exploration, and ethics. The strengths are client-centered and culturally responsive, requires counselor self-awareness and cultural humility. Um, Feminist therapy, the personal is political, which means that every situation is a political situation, has political implications. Therapy aims for empowerment and social change. Some of the techniques are power analysis, where you and your client look at the power that the client have and what they can do for change. Reframing, so you reframe the situation, and gender role analysis, where you look at the gender role and what are the gender roles saying and what we got to do, and stereotypes of the gender roles, how you flip that. The strengths are addressing oppressor and intersectionality. And let me explain what intersectionality is. It's like a lot of time we just look at it like when we look at people's identity, we look at them as being black, or we look at them being gay, or look at them being Christian or Muslim or Jewish or non-denominational spiritual, right? What intersectionality says is all those contributed to the identity of the person. So you could be a black female who's Christian, or you could be a Christian black female. So just by switching those demographics and labels could change the worldview. A black a black female Christian can have a different worldview than a Christian black female, or Christian female that's black, right? They can have a totally different worldview on how they see the world. So that's what it talks about intersectionality, how different uh, identities intersect to create that one person. Limitation requires comfort discussion about systemic issues. Solution focus, the core idea is focus on solution, not the problem. Techniques include the miracle question. That's basically that if you woke up and things were different, what would that look like? And then you go on and what would have changed? Uh, the scaling question, where it's like on a scale of 1 to 10, how do you rate this issue? Identifying exceptions, where it's like a lot of times clients will come in with an all or nothing, and it's like always, well, have been an exception what this did not happen. Well, let's talk about the exception when this did not happen. What were the key components of that? Strengths is time limited, that is very short, because you're focusing on the solution and not the problem. And it is strength based, that you focus on the client's strength. Limitation may overlook deeper emotional or systemic issues, because since you're focused solely on the solution, it might be deeper issues that are going on with your client that you've not addressed. Family systems theory, the core idea is individuals are best understood in the content of their family and relationship. You have three basic models: the Bowenian, the structural, and the strategic. Techniques include genogram, pattern mapping, and restructuring interactions. Strings address relational patterns. Limitation requires the whole family involved. Then you have what we call neural counseling. And what neural counseling core ideas is, it integrates neuroscience with counseling to support brain-based changes, focuses neuroplasticity, stress regulation, emotional regulation. Some of the techniques include mindfulness, biofeedback, brain-based psychoeducation. The strengths links biology and psychology. The limitation requires specialized strength. African-centered psychology, or with is the core idea It is grounded in African worldview, uh, community, spirituality, and ancestral wisdom. Guiding frameworks is Ma'at, an ancient Kemet principle of truth, balance, harmony, order, reciprocal justice. They look at the seven principles of truth, justice, harmony, balance, order, and propriety. Then you have Naguz Saba is the seven principles of African heritage of basically the basic principles of Kwanzaa. You have unity, self-determination, collective work, cooperative economics, purpose, creativity, and faith, right? The techniques include healing circles, storytelling, proverbs, and rituals. The strengths include culturally affirming for African diaspora clients. Um, African American psychology is a little different. It examines the unique psychological experience of African Americans shaped by our history, culture, and systemic oppression. And it focuses on racial identity, uh, resiliency, and healing from racial trauma. Techniques include like narrative therapy, racial socialization, and community engagement. And then finally, what I want to talk briefly about is liberation psychology. And with liberation psychology, the core idea is healing is linked to social justice and liberation from oppression. Uh, the techniques include critical awareness, community action, and empowerment work. The strengths is address systemic causes of distress. So we've covered a wide spectrum of counseling theories, each with unique philosophies, techniques, and cultural implications. I couldn't get too in depth because, like I said, that would make the theories and this video extremely long. But I wanted to give you like a quick overview. So if it's any of the theories that you're interested in, you can look them up uh, more in depth, or we can have a more in depth discussion one on one with any theory that you might have wanted to look at more uh, serious. So what I will ask you to do is figure out which theory resonates most with your values and why, right? And so I'd like to thank you for watching this video. And if you have, I would love to hear your feedback and any questions you might have.